All right, so I've got something really interesting for you guys this week, and it's actually something I learned from Scott Kilby several years ago. And with the way the brush enhancements have come along inside Photoshop, it makes it more fun to use this technique. And it's a way of using custom brushes to create very interesting graphics. So what we're going to do is go under the File menu and go to New. And let's set this to inches. I'm going to create a 7 by 7 inch at 100 pixels per inch document here. Let's go ahead and click OK. So there we have just a square file. Going to go in here and grab the lasso tool. You can also use the polygonal lasso tool as well if you like. Either one will work. I like to use the lasso tool and simply hold down the Option key as I use it, and it allows you to draw straight edges, just like the polygonal tool. So what we're going to do is, right inside this square document, it's going to click and drag and just create an abstract looking multi-sided shape, just like that. And with that selection active, I'm going to go under the Edit menu, and then do make sure that your foreground color is set to black, or you can always change the color inside the stroke. We're going to go under the Edit menu here, go to Stroke, and it goes ahead and assumes the color of the foreground swatch, which is fine. You can always change it by simply clicking on that. But we want to set it to black, and we're going to leave this at 3 pixels, and we want to make sure that we've got the location set to inside. Click OK, and there we have a cool stroke. It's not really cool. There's nothing much to it. What we're going to do now is define this as a brush. And if you remember me talk about brushes before, it's going to look at the document, and everything that's white, it's going to leave transparent and only turn what's black or even gray into the brush. So let's go into the Edit menu, go to Define Brush Preset. It looks at that whole area and defines that brush, and everything looks good. So now let's minimize that document or close it. We don't necessarily need it anymore. So let's go into the File menu and create another new document. And let's do this one. We'll do this one at 10 by 7. Again at 100. So we got a good sized document there. Let's throw a color on here. Let's actually do a gradient. So let's in this foreground swatch here. Let's set this to kind of a blue color, I guess. Something like that. And we'll set this background swatch to perhaps a green color. Using our gradient tool, again, let's go in here and choose the first gradient, which is the foreground to background gradient. I'm just going to drag from the top left corner to the bottom right, and it gives us a gradient in there. Create a new blank layer, and this is the cool part. This is the fun part. Going to go and locate that brush we defined, which will probably be at the very bottom of the brush order here. There it is. So you can see it takes on the shape of that brush. Let's set our foreground color to white and brush on this and see what we get. Well, that looks okay. It's giving me an interesting effect there, but let's go in here and modify it a little bit. I'm going to make the brush smaller first. And let's open up our brush options. And let's mess with the behavior of this brush a little bit. I'm going to turn off smoothing. I'm going to go into the brush tip shape area and bring the spacing down to around 10. So they're much closer together like that. Probably could even go lower. Let's do 5. There, that looks pretty interesting. Might even go a little bit higher. Let's do about 7. We can always change this too, by the way. So I've got that. I'm going to activate Shape Dynamics. I don't want the pin pressure on, so I'm going to go and set the control setting to off. But what I want to do down here is the angle jitter. I'm not going to mess with the slider, but I am going to modify the control here. Now I'm going to do a couple different things here. Let's put this first on direction. And what that's going to do is the shape of the brush is going to follow the direction as we paint on the document here. So let's close this window and see what we get. Or actually, let's just move it out of the way. So I'm going to make that brush a little bit smaller, and I'm going to start on one side of the document and just kind of go across. And you see we get a very cool effect happening here. How cool is that? Now, here's one cool thing. You can create like a spirograph effect. All different kinds of possibilities here. You can do little waves. Now, that's going in the direction of the brush. Let's change it to initial direction, which means it's only going to be affected on the initial direction I go, and it will stay in that orientation. So if I click and drag, you can see it's giving me a very different effect there. Very, very cool. So you can create kind of a wireframe sort of background just with this one little brush and just simply changing its behavior. Just like that. How cool is that? It's got a kind of a dimension to it, like a wireframe. You can also change the blend mode perhaps. Let's do that to overlay. And you can see we're getting a very different type of effect here. And you can experiment with this. Let's take the control and actually do set it to pen pressure for the size. And since I am using a pressure sensitive tablet, the smaller it is, I can press down harder and get a much bigger line. But you can see what I mean about you've initially created the brush and the behavior, and you can have all kinds of fun with the brush itself, doing all kinds of various effects. What if we go around in the spiral effect in this mode? It gives me a very, very different effect, giving me kind of a dimensional look. Let's make the brush bigger and see what it does. So you see, it's all kinds of possibilities. And of course, you can try different shapes. I just drew just a few sides of it. You know, you can see the shape I've drawn here, but try different shapes. Try really crazy shapes, or even a straight line, and do very different things to get a very different effect altogether. How cool is that? So, quick and easy, defining a quick shape as a brush, going in there, modifying its behavior, and you get very interesting three-dimensional wireframe look right there from scratch.